I'm Kathy McAllister of Teawife Creations. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to work on this bunny butt in the truck art. I had done this one previously as a technique piece that had a lot of dry brushing, shading, and other things we used on it. But I wanted to redo a tutorial that would be kind of fast and fun. So the artwork starts like this, but it has lots of different layers and pieces to it. And again, this piece with the layers will be available in my Etsy shop. And I hope you enjoy this little tutorial. Thank you. So today we're going to try to do a more fast and fun creation of this artwork. This piece was done as a technique piece that had a lot of dry brushing and shading, and I do have a tutorial for that. It takes a little bit more time to do that process, so I thought, well, let's do something with sponges and see if we can do it faster. And so this is the piece that we're going to be working on. This is how it starts. This artwork was the SVG was originally designed by Diva Watts Designs, and I've gone ahead and taken it into my laser cutter, my X-Tool laser cutter, and done all these pieces that kind of create a little puzzle. So you would be painting these, or we're going to try to do, like I said, some sponging on it. After you paint the pieces, then you put everything together. So if you do like making puzzles, it's kind of like reassembling a puzzle. But we're going to go step by step and try to use art sponges that are like this, that they can be washed out and reused. So I hope you enjoy this, and let's get started. So we're just gonna start painting some of these pieces. You can use sponges for this, or you can use brushes. I'm gonna go ahead and just brush paint on here. And to save from having to do a lot of shading and detailing, we are just going to use a silver or a gray metallic on the fender. And it's going to need a couple of coats. So the bumper fender is done. So we'll set that aside, and we're going to move to the bunny body. And if you see the way that this piece is layered, so you have the butt of the bunny, and you have two of these pieces for the tail, so that it pops out a little bit more than the body of the bunny. And then you have two pieces for the feet, like so. All right. And as we get going, we will be painting the body of the truck as well. But most of this, we won't actually be painting onto the base piece, but we do have to paint onto the car and the windshield because they won't have layers. So you can just use a regular Snow White for the bunny, or if you want to use warm white, you can. So that's up to you. I'm just going to use the Snow White. And now it's time to get very messy, because sponging is very messy. But it's so much fun. So just basically taking a craft sponge and a bit of paint. So you're trying to kind of disperse it evenly throughout your sponge. So you don't want to just go dab and then dab. You want to kind of work it into the sponge. And it doesn't matter what bit you start with. Sponging is very soothing. And this is the kind of craft that can be done everyone of all ages. It's fun to get your kids in on it. Great little project getting ready for Easter. On the feet, you kind of need to make sure, I mean, you can do both sides. If you're not sure you've got it correct when you're doing it, you can you can sponge both sides, but you can see what side is the front and what side is the back, because you don't need to waste time and extra paint to do both sides of your pieces. But there is a front and a back side for the feet. Oops. And we're going to be coming back in here with some pink paint. So if you lose your detailing in here, that's fine. So after you do one coat of sponging, you either want to use the heat tool to get it to dry or wait for it to dry. If you sponge onto wet paint, you'll just remove paint that you put down and potentially create like a hot spot. So don't sponge the next round until the pieces are dry. So I have the carrots and the large backlights. You'll see that there's also small ones that go on top, and those are going to be red. These are going to be bright orange along with the carrots. So you can sponge all those elements there in bright orange. And I finished sponging the base coat of the bunny body, and that actually required 3 coats of white to get it to where I liked it. We'll go back to all of these pieces after we do base coats and do detailing. So, but for now, we're just going to get our base coating finished. And again, this is going to require at least 2 to 3 coats. I think if you're brushing on, it's only 2 coats, but the sponging, it looks like I need to do like 3 coats. And by all means, if you want to brush on the paint instead of sponging on these pieces, whichever is easier for you, just do sponging or brushing. Okay, so these tire treads are going to be in slate gray, and they're going to be raised up on this pattern as well. So we'll come back and paint these in black or charcoal in a little while. But for now, we're going to sponge on slate gray. And probably again, it's going to take 3 coats, maybe 2 on this one. It might be a little bit better coverage. The base coat for the green carrot tops is Festive Green. So just apply the green all over the carrot tops. We'll come back later and do some detailing in the little areas here. The little small circle backlights are going to be in Red Alert. I'm not going to sponge these. I am just going to paint on the red. The license plate is sponged in white. And we'll come back later on and do detailing with the word Easter. You have a couple of options. Because we have, you can paint in the detail of the word Easter, but we also have this really cool, fragile little piece here that can set on top of that. So you'll have to decide what you want to do. So I have these 3 little egg pieces, and I have Gentle Heather for this, Jadeite Glass for this, and Sunny Day for the little one. And you can try different colors. You don't have to use these colors. While we have our sponges wet, I'm going to go ahead and sponge letters as well. The happy. You could use 5 different colors, but I'm just going to use the colors that I have here already. So we're moving on to this face artwork, and I have some Moody Blue paint. And we're going to paint the back of the vehicle and then up here as well. This will be, the windshield will be a gray, and we'll do that in a little bit. And I'm not going to sponge. I'm gonna brush this on. So here we go. Oh, and also, like, places where you would be covering this up, you can just paint directly over. So some of the fender is going to be showing through, some of the bumper. But I wouldn't worry too much about, like, hitting the carrot tops because they will be covered up. All right. And like we're putting the feet in there, so it doesn't have to be perfect around the feet either. So you can be as careful or not careful as you want to be in some of these areas. The Moody Blue paint is now dry, so after the second coat, I got some roughness going on here, so I wanted to sand it. Yeah, that feels better. Okay, so for the fender, you can see that this covers it, and behind it, it would be nice to have a slightly darker color. So you could use a flat color like this charcoal gray around the edges, and you don't have to be perfect because again, that's going to cover it up. Or if you happen to have other colors of metallic, like I have this particular Raven Black from Sparks, you can use another metallic behind it, or you can just use the same silver that you used on this. So I am going to try this slightly darker metallic. The tire area needs to be painted in black, or you can use a dark charcoal, whichever works for you. I'll add one extra layer of black just for good measure. So the windshield back here is going to be in slate gray. And I'm going to brush it again because you do need fairly tight lines where it reaches the roof of the truck. All right, it will need another coat after it dries. We're going to move back to the body of the bunny, and I want to show you the piece that I had previously done. So you can see that we added pink to the little pads, and there's shades of pink and white and a little bit of gray. So we're gonna start, it will look different than this because we're gonna use sponging, but we're going to start that process. So these are the colors that I've picked to use. So this is Baby Blush. This is Petal Pink. This is Slate Gray. And that is white. So I'll move that over. All right. So these are well and truly dry now. Also, these are the intermediate level layers. So you don't actually need to do anything else with those, except, in fact, we didn't even need to paint them. But now that this is all fully dry, and the same with one of the tails, we don't need to work on one of the tails. Now that this is fully dry, we kind of need to re-moisten the paint so we can get some paint effects to go, because what we're trying to do is create a little bit of shading, highlighting, make it look a little bit more multi-dimensional in color. So this gray is very gray, and we want it to be less so. So we're going to make it a little bit lighter by mixing it on our palette with just a little bit of white. And you want to be very light with your touch now. We're not just going to be pouncing it on like we were earlier, just enough to give it some color. And in fact, if you want to try to make it look a little bit more like shading, I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. You can kind of, if you can get hold of it, you can kind of do it around the edges. And that way you don't have to come back with a brush and add shading. So you can do that with a sponge. It's a little bit trickier in there. So that creates just a little, a little bit of appearance of shading while making it extremely easy to do it. And we can come back with the tail and do the same thing around the edge. Okay. And we want some multi-color inside. So I'm going to get a clean sponge. That's not a clean sponge. There we go. And I'm going to come back with some of this blush First of all, let me just dry this a bit. So that was the baby blush. And then I want to come back and layer back a little bit of white. And it's okay to use the same sponge, because it will just create a slightly different color. It won't be baby blush and it won't be white exactly. And we're just going to kind of layer. So I'm going to come back with the gray, light gray mixture that we used earlier and edge around the feet. Again, it's instead of doing traditional shading with a flat or an angled brush, we're just going to do it this way, and it's so much faster, and it looks great on a piece like this. And we're not going to worry about making this kind of multicolored, because we're going to come back with pink that we're going to brush in there. All right. So I want a little bit more white back in this part of the bunny butt. And I'll put some there too. Okay. So I'm using a heat gun. So this is one that's made by Ranger. I think it's like one of the most popular because it's one of the easiest to get. Okay. Now, I'm going to use the brighter pink, petal pink, on the tail only. I'm not going to use it on the body of the bunny, but I'm going to start by making it just a little bit lighter. So I'm kind of mixing colors again with my sponge. Okay, so just really have to be pretty light with the touch. You don't want to just completely have your tail dominated with that super pink. Okay. And really, that's about all you have to do. You don't need to do a lot more, but I am going to come in with little swirly pinwheels on the tail using all these colors. But I mean, you could let that go just like that. So also, now I'm going to go ahead and put the petal pink. Actually, I'm going to start with the baby blush. I want to see what that looks like in the little paw pads. All right. That's pretty light, but might be what we want. I don't know. That is definitely very light. But maybe you want a subtle color and not the bright pink. I'll show you the difference. So this one was done with petal pink, and this is baby blush. And you can decide how light you want your pink, or how medium or dark you want your pink. So, and this is This is a dry brush that I'm using called Mezzaluna by Dynasty. And it has a little bit stiffer bristles so that, like, you know, this is pretty rough. So when you're going over this, it's standing up to the wood grain. And if you use a very soft brush, it's going to behave very differently. Your coverage will be different. But you can use whatever brushes you have on hand. If you plan to do a lot of dry brushing on your pieces in the future, having Mezzaluna brushes is really, really helpful. So that's what that looks like. It's very subtle. And there's nothing to say that we can't use both colors. We can play around with that. Normally, if I'm dry brushing with these brushes, I'm using very dried off paint. However, I'm trying to make this particular project to be not quite so technical and just really easy to throw all the paint on. And I don't want to do something that you may not want to do. I want to make it very straightforward. So I love that light color. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if I should put any of this on or not. So let's see. Because we do have it in the tail. So if you do dry it off really good on a paper towel, and you can use the wood grain here. This is when wood grain is really your friend, because you run it over the high part of the wood grain, and it picks up the color on the surface of the grain, and it doesn't go into the valley. So it leaves kind of this pretty little, there's a bit of whiteness or lightness coming through. Yeah, I like that. So we're gonna leave that like that. So in the end, I took a thin liner brush and I came back with the baby blush, which is that. And I reinforced the color with a second coat using the liner brush and wetter paint. But you can see it's kind of in reverse of what I did on this one. So you can decide what you like better. So the lighter colors inside on this, darker color, petal pink there. Blush in, petal pink. And this is a little bit of petal pink dry brushed here with the baby blush. So it would look like that. Two very different looks. So this is what I'm going to do on our sponge tail. And of course you could just leave it like that. But I kind of like these little curly cues. So I'm going to get my liner brush again. And I'm going to do the little curly cue swirls. All right, I've switched to a serious liner to make this as small as possible, but you can use whatever kind of liner you have available. That's just a bit of water. So you're going to use all these colors. I'm not sure I would use the gray. So some of them show up more than others. I don't know. Maybe I use the gray. I'm not sure. So this one does not show up a lot, but the point is that you're just trying to provide like a little bit of whimsical texture. You're not like trying to make everything stick out like a sore thumb. But the white and the petal pink will of course show up more than this. But we'll start with this very light baby blush. Okay. Let me dry that. Yeah, that is super, super, super light. Okay. Now I'm going to go to white. And you definitely should be able to see that. I'm going to reinforce some of the white. I'm actually allowing it to be pretty thick going on. Otherwise, the white is just being completely lost. So I'm almost using the white as a texture. And I'm going to do the same with the baby blush. Just come back and reapply. And it's still extremely light. So when you purchase this DIY wood kit in my Etsy shop, I will not only send you or let me rephrase that, I don't like negatives. I will be sending you the wood and also a worksheet that tells you, well, these are the colors I used. And I understand not everybody has these colors, or they don't, maybe you don't use Americana deco art. So, but it kind of just still gives you a guide on how I put the colors together. And then, of course, you have access to these tutorials as well. All right, there you go. That's the tail done. That's the bunny butt done. Okay. So the bunny butt is starting to look like that. Cute. So working on the backlights, which go there, we're going to use a bit of this saffron yellow to edge around. And if you want, I mean, you can do it. You don't have to be too neat about it, because this is going to go over the top of that. country red, and we're going to put it on the opposite side over here. So, because the original was red alert, and we just wanted a little bit of darker on the edge. And I don't know if some of that yellow was too much, so I'm just gonna come back really, really lightly here. Just kind of go back in with some of the red alert. And then back with you. There we go. So those pieces. Okay, so here we have the carrots, and we want to create just a little bit of interest in the carrot. So we're going to re-wet the carrot with a sponge with our same color, burnt orange, and then also a bit more of this saffron yellow. And we're going to remember to kind of condition the sponge a little bit so it's not so wet and just in one area. So we're going to get it wet again. Now it should be more receptive to accepting the yellow. If you just put the yellow straight down on it, the yellow would have been pretty stark. Sort of like that. But it will kind of work with the orange that you reintroduced to the carrot, and they will kind of meld, the colors will kind of meld together. And if it's too yellowy for you, you can use the sponge almost like an eraser. Okay, so okay. So in this piece, I did shading, and then I came back with a liner to create these sort of grow lines. And I'm going to show you a couple of ways that you can shade or create these grow lines. Okay, so the typical way that you shade is getting the trash out of your liquid. I don't know where half this stuff is coming from. Some of these sponges are old, and I reuse them, and they end up picking up all kinds of stuff from all the places and classes I've been to. Okay, so this is my water, my liquid. I actually use a fast-drying glazed medium instead of water for a number of reasons. It glides a lot better. I like the way it finishes better. And then I'm shading with cinnamon stick. So the traditional way, this is my angled brush. You can use an angled brush or a flat brush. And initially, you want your brush to kind of be wet, but then you're going to dab it off. And then I just dab a tiny bit of it into the liquid and then into the paint on the edge. You condition it first, and then you lay it somewhat flat like this, and you go up. So, and then you dip it, if it's too wet, you can touch it onto a paper towel. And you can go like this, or you can go, if you want it to go more into the carrot, you can also take it more horizontally. So just like that. And I would have a tendency to go over that again. I want it to be a little bit darker. But if shading doesn't feel overly comfortable for you, you can also get a liner. This is not a sophisticated liner. And again, kind of, or I guess some, well, liner, round. Condition it again. Come back over here and kind of brush it on. But see, it's kind of a little bit heavier than you might like. So have a mop brush ready and then dab it. So it's a lot faster than trying to figure out the angled brush if you haven't been painting for a long period of time. So just basically go in on the edges, just like that. Dab it so that there's not an overly definitive line. So that's another way of doing it. So I'm going to continue with my shading. But again, you can try however you'd like. Just on the carrots, you just kind of need a little bit of extra stuff going on. Because we have to put the grow lines or the creases in as well. So this piece is probably dry. So all right. Let's try to imagine the way that the grow lines are going. Creases, carrot creases. I don't know what you call these things. So even if you're shading, you can use that mop brush. This is the Cha-Cha, which is made by Lori Speltz, or it's available from Lori Speltz, the creative coach. And this end is a scrubber, so you can scrub out boo-boos you might make. And then this is perfect as a mop brush to mop up excess moisture, as I was just doing. So shading with a flat brush or an angled brush, it just creates a softer line than if you're just using like a liner or a round. But you can try different techniques and see what you like, what looks better to your eye. And in fact, on this, we're going to do both. As you can see here, I did some shading, but then I came back with the liner, and I think it's dark chocolate is the acrylic I used. So we're going to do that. So the dark chocolate acrylic here, and I've gone to a liner brush here. I have a lot of new brushes that I've been trying out, so you'll probably be like, oh, there's another new brush. There's another brush. What? What? Anyway, this is an Ott liner from Black Gold, Dynasty Black Gold. So I just want to take it, and it's kind of reinforcing the shading. But the main thing is I want to come in and create more definitive lines here. All right, so now for the green tops on the carrots, we want to sponge in a little bit of a lighter green. So the one that we used was festive green, and you could just jump to the next step, but it's so easy to sponge, and it creates just a little bit more interest in your piece. So we're going to be sponging the carrots, the carrot tops, the greenery with Irish moss. And again, this is pretty light. Easy peasy. And if you wanted to do any sponging around the edges with a darker color, you could do that. That would be up to you. So now we're going to put some yellow and some orange in these little definitive areas of the carrot top. I'm going to try to bring some of this paint back to life that I previously used. I'm not saying that that's the best thing you should do, but I'm just doing it. So it's just kind of quick little sparks of color, just so it's not so flat and dull. And you, like I said, you certainly could come back with a darker green. In fact, let me grab a darker green, and I'm just gonna line it a bit. I'm not gonna shade, and just see what it looks like. So I have avocado. And it doesn't have to go everywhere. I mean, if you want to put it in just on like the left side, that's where the left side is where I have a tendency to put my shading, my darker colors. Oops. Can even do a little bit up there. Just on the tippy toppy. Just like that. Okay. All right. So back to, we did saffron yellow inside here. And now we're going to come back with the bright orange. Another orange I like also is there's spice pumpkin as well. But I didn't want to introduce too many colors into this so that, you know, you wouldn't feel like you had to go and buy a bunch of colors, and you certainly don't. Use what you have, said the woman who has a tendency to buy all the deco art colors off the shelves at Michael's. Yeah, don't listen to me. Or maybe listen to me. Don't do what I do. Or maybe do what I do. We can never have too many craft supplies. Okay, so a little bit of interest makes them a little bit more dimensional. Look at that. It is shaping up. All right. All right, I have melon. I'm going to try to freehand on a tiny little flower onto this eggshell. So just a simple little freehand, primitive flower. I got a little bit big on the last one. So let's go back over. There we go, done. So it needs a little bit of saffron yellow in the middle. So I'm just going to use the back end of my brush. There we go, all done. Okay, so then for the other eggs, I have some darker colors, and I think I'm going to get the sponge wet. And so that was Gentle Heather, and this is Vivid Violet, and I'm just going to go around the edges to create an illusion of shading. Okay, and we can go in a little bit more. This is the left side, so if the left side has a little bit more of the dark, that there would be lighter on this side coming in. And of course, the high point is about right here, because at the end, we're going to add in some highlights and finish some finishing. So, all right, let that dry. And then we'll do the same with this. So this started as jadeite glass. And we're going to go into sweet mint and just do a little of that. Get a sponge. So it's not really darker. Nope. Definitely not darker. Okay. So we're going to use Sea Aqua to sponge this egg. So remember, we'll put more of the sponging on the left side. A little bit more there than on this side. Okay, there you go. So I have baby blue here, and if you want to just do something different, you can add in some little dots. Okay. And I'm going to do some little swirlies using this baby blush again. So okay, so of course it isn't glued down, so things are not exactly in place, but it's coming along. So we're going to do the biggest piece that involves shading, and that's going to be the edging the truck. So we're going to add in a little bit of light sponge work in kind of the middle area of the vehicle where you would imagine you'd have a lighter color with the sun bouncing off of the back of the vehicle. So you don't want a lot, and you don't want it to go all the way out to the edge. And if you do it up here, you also don't want to get it into the windshield. And you can just kind of mop it up a little bit. And then the original color was Moody Blue, and I'm going to come back with that and mix. You're kind of mixing the two colors so that it's not quite as light. We're going to come back with shading up here too. So, and in fact, the top of the roof is going to be lighter anyway, because this is where the sun is directly bouncing. So we're going to make this a little bit lighter than the rest of the car. And if you want to tone down some of the lightness, you can come back with the Moody Blue. And you're just using the sponge to mix the colors. And same in here, you can tone down some of the lighter color. So instead of dry brushing, we're doing all this with sponges because it's easier, it's faster. And you just create the color that you want. So I'm going to come back with just a little bit more moody blue back here, strategically. And then in here, just a bit more of the lighter. So the colors just sort of start merging together and layering and giving a nice dimension. Okay. All right. So we're going to be shading with Victorian blue. So these were the colors that we've been working with, the baby blue and the moody blue. Now we're coming in with Victorian blue, which is that. Okay. So I have my shading brush. It's a little bit bigger. It's a black gold, Dynasty black gold, 1/2 inch. It's a bit bigger. It just seems to take the color a lot easier, faster. Sometimes when you use the small brushes, you don't get as good of coverage as you want. Okay, so areas where we want shading would be here and along the bumper. I'm going to take a bit of baby blue and use it as a highlight across the top. You're going to use some light gray, and you have the option of doing light gray in here as a sponging technique, or I'm just going to do some dry brushing. I promised we wouldn't do much, but I just feel like on the windshield it would be nice to do a bit of dry brushing. So dry brushing is like it sounds, that you put paint on your brush and then you take it off with a paper towel. And you're using much stiffer brushes. So these are the Mezzaluna brushes again. I do not have the best light gray paint. I may have to pivot and use a different paint. But I do not have the Americana version of the light gray. And because what you're trying to do with the windshield is just give an illusion of light reflecting in the back here. Oh, that's a better paint. The other one's going in the trash. Definitely need to order more paint. See? You never can have enough crafts, right? Isn't that what I said earlier? All right. I didn't need a lot. It just needed a little. And then I'll come back with white and create a little bit more. And you don't actually change out the color in the brush because you use your paper towel to kind of erase the previous color. But if the gray and the white mix, that's like a next step up. So that's perfectly fine. So think about where you're going to have the white. You know, you kind of want more white along up here. I can put some up there. Okay. All right. This is what the final piece looks like. I've gone ahead and glued all the pieces together. Some of the final touches that you can see is that I've come back with some more white and key places, like here on the tread and on the fender, and a few places on the truck up here in the windshield up here. And also before I did that, I did do a little bit of darker gray shading on the windshield, just very light. And you can see some white here, what tiny bit of white there. And other than that, it's just been glued together. Before I glued together, though, I did put I painted a bit of this here and used some glitter. You can see that. And this Easter, this is a metallic blue that's been sponged over the top of it. There's a little bit of shading on the license plate here, and you can see the glitter there. So everything's just been glued down, and it's pretty much ready to go. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this tutorial. I sure hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to purchase this paint your own piece of the bunny butt in the truck, it's available in my Etsy shop. That would be Teawife Creations. So stop by, and if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.